Hey guys, what's going on? James here. In this video today, we're going to be going over some of the needs and targets that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may have following Wave 1 of NFL free agency. Now, 2025 free agency has died down a lot, and we're not getting as much news coming down the pipeline of new signings made and whatnot, but there's still some interesting players available in my opinion, so I'm going to go through each position group today, from most important needs I still feel are there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the least important needs, and talk about some targets that may still be there. So let's go ahead and start off with the cornerback position. The number one guy on my list still is Rasul Douglas. He is 30 years old. Will be 31 years old this upcoming season. The Bucs, so far, have opted to hang on to Jamel Dean. Now, I don't know if that's going to stay the course going forward. We have no idea, right? It does seem like that may very well be the case. If they do still decide to move on from Dean, Rasul Douglas could be an interesting option that would cost a little bit less than what the Buccaneers have in Dean right now. He's the number one cornerback target for the Bucs on my list. I'm going to go down a little bit further to Asante Samuel Jr. This is a young guy, literally only 25 years old. He's going to cost a good bit of money, but again, if you do decide to move on from Jamel Dean, you have Asante Samuel Jr., you have Zion McCollum, who's probably going to get a big payday here soon, and that could be a very good young starting cornerback duo, possibly for the foreseeable future, depending on how the money works and things along those lines. I like Asante Samuel Jr. a good bit. I know this is a bit of a meme, but James Bradberry's on this list for me. And Bradberry, look, I understand, like, Mike Evans absolutely schools him all the time, but like, you could do worse than James Bradberry. He did just win a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles and could be an interesting, like, veteran 1 year kind of stopgap option. He's about to be 32 years old. He has a lot of experience starting an outside cornerback, which is better than most guys, in my opinion. Similar case for Stephon Gilmore, 34 years old, played for the Minnesota Vikings, actually played decent for the Vikings. I think that if you could get him for not that much money, could be an interesting option. Back whenever the Bucs had Brady, it was reported that they were interested in the possibility of signing Stephon Gilmore. Never ended up happening, but maybe now they could bring him in. Again, he's pretty old. Maybe you could get him for something cheaper, like at a cheaper value, in my opinion. He did just make only, let me see if I can find it. He did make $7 million with the Vikings. If you could get him for less, I mean, hey, could be an interesting backup option with a former defensive player of the year, by the way, as well. So that's an interesting option. Kendall Fuller is on this list if I can find him. 30 years old, has inside-outside experience, just played recently with the Miami Dolphins. He could be an interesting option. Jeff Okudah is on this list. Jalen Mills is an interesting option for me as well. I like Jalen Mills. He has cornerback safety versatility, which the Buccaneers very heavily value. He could be some veteran option that you may want to bring in later. Then after that, you've got some interesting veterans like Tre'Davious White. He's had a lot of injuries in his career. He is 30 years old. Rock Ya-Sin is an interesting option. He most recently played with the San Francisco 49ers. He's about to be 29 years old. Could be a good veteran backup. Shaquille Griffin, he played with the Minnesota Vikings as well. Again, about to be 30 years old. Could be a, just fine backup option. Mike Hilton could be a good backup veteran nickel. And then finally, you have some guys like C.J. Henderson and most recently the released Chidobe Awuzie. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, those are kind of the cornerbacks that I believe the Buccaneers could take a look at in that mix. I do feel like they could still use an edge defender. In my opinion, there are still some good edge defenders available. I'm not going to go over, I'm going to glance here, but Zadarius Smith is an interesting option. Played with the Detroit Lions, hasn't signed anywhere yet. If he does get past the NFL draft and you can get him at a high value, this is a guy that has been a really solid, at least 8 sacks per season the past 4 years. Him, Hassan Reddick, Yaya Diaby, maybe a rookie in there, Braswell, Anthony Nelson. That's a pretty beefy pass rush in my opinion, and I'd be all for that. He's the number one edge rusher I want the Buccaneers to take a look at. Here's a very slept on guy that could be a very solid option. It's Azeez Ojulari, and I know people take a look at that and be like, what are you talking about, James? I mean, he is only 24 years old, about to be 25 years old. This could be a great young player that maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take a look at. He did have 6 sacks this past season, 8 sacks in his rookie year. He hasn't played a ton of games. I think he's had some injury problems. But if you can get this young guy in as a rotational guy and he pops off, you got a great young pass rush group in terms of Yaya, Azeez Ojulari, and also Chris Braswell in there as well. I like Azeez Ojulari a lot. Would not even be mad at all if they were to bring him in. You've then got some guys like Trevis Gibson is on this list formerly. He's more of like a pass rush specialist, doesn't necessarily help as much in terms of run stopping opportunities, but I have him on here. Carl Lawson is on here. Matt Judon, Charles Omenihu, Preston Smith, Von Miller. Von Miller's kind of cooked at this point, but hey, it is what it is. Dennis Gardeck is on there, former Arizona Cardinal. He's an interesting option. You have also got Tyus Bowser. Bringing back Shaq Barrett would be, fine in my opinion. I suppose I wouldn't be mad at that at all, depending on what the price tag may be. Lorenzo Carter, former Atlanta Falcon. O'Shane Ximenez, former New England Patriot. You've got Julian Okwara, Jahan Ward, and Tano Kapassan as the other pass rushers. But really, in my mind, like Zadarius Smith, Azeez Ojulari, those two, would not be mad at those two coming into Tampa Bay at all. I also want to take a look at inside linebacker because I feel like the Bucs still could bring in another guy at inside linebacker. I know they brought in Anthony Walker Jr. I know they have Servassier Dennis, but you could possibly bring in another weapon or another option. Two guys that are in here that aren't, like, they're listed as outside linebackers according to Spot Rack, is Jerome Baker. He's number 2 on my list, and Kazir White. He's number 6 on my list. Wouldn't be mad at either one of those guys. Do you take a look at a former Carolina Panther? I mean, Shaq Thompson. Well, he was on this list. Did he sign somewhere? Shaq Thompson may have signed somewhere. Maybe he didn't. Or maybe he's listed as an outside linebacker. Let me go ahead and check. Hold on just a moment. Patrick Jones. Oh, yeah, here he is. Shaq Thompson right here. I mean, look, he's a good run stopper. He's a veteran. Has had some really good years, but has also had some injury problems as well. Shaq Thompson is at the top of my list just to bring in a veteran guy who's had a lot of good experience. Jerome Baker, as I said. Willie Gay, good run stopper. Pretty bad in coverage, but hey, he's only 27 years old. Could be an interesting option. Eric Kendricks, a veteran linebacker, 33 years old, has had a lot of starting experience. Neville Hewitt, good pass guy. He is number 5 on my list. Kazir White, as I mentioned. Jalen Reeves-Maben just played for the Detroit Lions. Good special teamer and a fine backup inside linebacker in there as well. Chris Barnes with the Arizona Cardinals is there. Devin White, still unsigned, only 27 years old. Do you bring him back? Probably not, but hey, I have him on there as an option. And then finally, to round it out, Nathan Landman, good young option at 26 years old. Started last year for the Falcons, and then Quan Alexander. Maybe they have a home reunion. I don't know. But it's a little bit thin at inside linebacker here in the free agency market. A lot of inside linebackers signed some big deals, but there are still some interesting veteran options in my opinion. Okay, so we've talked about cornerback. We've talked about edge rusher. We've talked about inside linebacker. Those are still position groups that the Buccaneers could add to, in my opinion. And I would be, I'd be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But what about defensive line? There's still some options at the defensive line. There are not a ton, in my opinion, but still some options. You've got Emmanuel Ogbah. He was an option for the Miami Dolphins. He's a bit of a veteran, probably wouldn't be that expensive. Taven Bryant can play inside, can play outside, former Florida player as well. Could be possibly an option for the Bucs at only 29 years old. Raekwon Davis, he got released from the Indianapolis Colts, literally only 27 and a half years old, about to be 28 this upcoming season. I like him a lot as a backup guy. Dwayne Smoot, bit of a pass rush specialist. Quentin Jefferson, bit of a pass rush specialist. DeMarcus Walker, same thing. Foley Fatukasi, Maurice Hurst. Those guys are all pass rush types of guys, right? And I'm looking at depth guys that can help rush the passer in this scenario. Austin Johnson, big guy, would probably help in run defense. Same thing with Marlon Davidson, Jonathan Hankins. Those guys are all kind of your big, beefier, run-stopping type guys. And then John Kaminsky, just another backup guy. They could still add a veteran guy to their D-line. I know that they brought back Greg Gaines, but Will Golston's still a free agent, and maybe you could bring back another defensive end if you absolutely wanted to. So that's pretty much it for defense. Like, just to kind of wrap this up, I mean, like, safety, yeah, you could add another safety. There's still some interesting options. Like, Marcus Williams is available. Don't know how much he would cost, but like Julian Blackmon could be an option. Justin Simmons, I mean, hey, if he doesn't cost a lot of money, he's 31 years old, started a lot of games in the past. You could bring back Mike Edwards. I hope they do. I think that would be a fine option. Quandre Diggs is in there, John Johnson, Marcus May, Ronnie Harrison. Those are some guys that the Buccaneers could target as well. Now to go to the offensive side of the ball, because quite frankly, the Bucs still have needs on the defensive side of the ball, more so than the offensive side, but let's take a look at some backups that they could get in. In my opinion, you do kind of need a backup center now that Robert Hainsey has gone away. Who could be some options there? Well, David Andrews was just released from the New England Patriots. I don't think he's going to be an option, but he would be the top guy. Dan Feeney, Nick Gates, and Shane Lemieux are the other options that are in there as well. Andre James, he's probably not going to be available. And then also, sorry, I'm not as familiar with the center game here, but, could possibly be an option in there as well. Taking a look now at offensive guard, yes, you did bring back Ben Bredeson, and you do have some interesting guards in there, but what other options are available? Well, hey, could you bring back Shaq Mason? He just got released recently from the Houston Texans. I think that Brandon Scherf's probably going to cost too much money. Will Hernandez is an interesting option, former New York Giant, current Arizona Cardinal, only 30 years old. Cody Whitehair has guard center versatility, so maybe he could be an option. He's about to be 33, though, so that would be a good amount of money to, he's old. He's old, okay? Dalton Reisner. Mekhi Becton was on my list, but he's off now, so I actually got to remove him. Because where did he sign? I think he signed with, the Arizona Cardinals or something. And finally, Mark Glowinski is an option as well. Tevin Jenkins, it looks like he's just going to cost too much money. Where did Mekhi Becton sign? The Chargers. Makes sense. They like to run the football. He's a very good run blocker ever since he moved from tackle to guard. So again, not a ton of options in my opinion at backup guard, but it is what it is. What about backup offensive tackle? Could that still be an option? You lost Justin School. What other names could be there? Well, he got George Fant. And keep in mind, big names here, right? Like Cam Robinson, Joseph Noteboom. Maybe you bring in Joseph Noteboom. I don't know. I didn't have him on my list. Tyron Smith, Black. Jedrick Wills. He's probably going to be a starter somewhere. But I do have some other options. George Fant would be an interesting name. I like him a lot. Did he sign somewhere? Actually, matter of fact, what's going on here? Did George Fant sign somewhere? Okay, I don't think he did. George Fant's on my list. I like George Fant a lot. He has a lot of starting ability, and he's done some good work in the past. DJ Humphries, former Arizona Cardinal. I think he played with Arians. I'm pretty sure he played with Arians. He's 32 years old. Wouldn't cost that much. He has some tackle versatility. Andres Pete, he has guard tackle versatility. Was never really that good for the Saints, but you never know. Isaiah Wynn, former New England Patriot. Andre Dillard is an interesting option. Trenton Brown and Jermaine Ifedi are some interesting options. There we go. I found George Fant. He's about to be 33 years old. I like George Fant. Would be an interesting option in my opinion. All right, let's see. A couple more position groups I want to tackle here. Let's take a look at tight end. Could they use a veteran tight end? Maybe. Tyler Conklin probably is going to be out of their price range, but I did put him down here. Gerald Everett. I like Gerald Everett. He probably would be an inexpensive veteran. I've got Mo Alley Cox on here. I've got CJ Uzuma on here. I've also got Hayden Hurst and Irv Smith Jr. Just some veteran guys that the Buccaneers could possibly target somewhere down the line. I should bring up a wide receiver. Yes, the Buccaneers did bring back Sterling Shepard, but there's some other options. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I do have, Diggs, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper on here. Those guys are probably going to get priced out of the Bucs range. Brandon Cooks only having a market value of $5 million is kind of crazy. I would be very content to bring in Brandon Cooks at that value. I think that'd be interesting. Deontay Johnson, I don't want him. Seems like a bit of a distraction, in my opinion. Tyler Lockett could be an interesting option at 32 years old if you want a veteran. Seems like he might be a little bit expensive, though, at $7.7 million. Tyler Boyd is a guy that kind of flies under the radar. I know he's 30 years old, but he has some very good starting experience in the league in the past. I wouldn't be mad at all if they brought in Tyler Boyd to compete for a roster spot. Robert Woods, pretty, older veteran, 33 years old, but if you want a guy for the back half of your roster, you could go with that. Josh Reynolds, Nelson Aguilar, McCole Hardman, and DJ Shark are the other guys that round out my wide receiver list. Last two position groups I want to go over, guys. Firstly, running back. The Bucs don't need a running back. I mean, point blank simple as this, they don't need a running back. But if they did want to add a fourth running back, who could be some options? Nick Chubb's still available. I mean, hey, he's about to be 30 years old. He came off of a devastating knee injury, but if you want to give a guy a shot, Nick Chubb was a dog. People forget Nick Chubb was an absolute dog. So he's the top on my list just for funsies. You have some other Chargers running backs like Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins is in there. Jamal Williams, very good short yardage power type of back. Cam Akers is an interesting option at 25, about to be 26 years old. All these guys are very inexpensive, by the way. Amir Abdullah is in there. Did he play? Bruce Arians wanted to draft Amir Abdullah at one point. I know Todd Bowles is the head coach now, but I mean, Bruce Arians is still in the building, so that's interesting. Dearness Johnson is in here. Like Dearness Johnson, he had a good run with the Browns not too long ago. Jeff Wilson, Nyheim Hines, and Chase Edmonds, bringing Chase Edmonds back, are all some options that are in there as well. Finally, we're going to go after backup quarterback. Who are some options here? I know the Bucs brought back Kyle Trask. They have Michael Pratt. But if you did want to add a backup quarterback, here are some options. Rodgers, no. I mean, they're not bringing in Aaron Rodgers. They're also not bringing back Jameis Winston. That's just not happening. And also, Russell Wilson is not going to be brought in. All three of those guys are likely going to be looking for places where they can start. Well, not even likely. They are going to be looking for places where they can start. So, backup quarterbacks, Carson Wentz. Honestly, if you brought in Carson Wentz, you'd probably have one of the better backups in the league. I like Carson Wentz a lot. I know some people may not agree with that, but I think you could certainly do worse. He's about to be 30. He's only 32 years old. I know he's had some injury problems, but former number 2 overall pick, and literally has put up some good numbers in his NFL career. I like Carson Wentz. I think that he would be an interesting option. He's my number 1 option for if the Bucs still want to add a backup quarterback. Case Keenum, the old reliable. I loved his run with the Minnesota Vikings. He is 37 years old. He may very well retire. I'm still a big Teddy Bridgewater guy, 32 years old. Just made his return to football, but could be an option. You have some interesting guys like Tyler Huntley, very mobile quarterback, only 27 years old. Maybe could be something. CJ Beathard, again, just a long-time backup who's done some good work filling in for starts in his past. Then you have kind of like that next tier of guys. Desmond Ridder. Remember whenever he stiff-armed Joe Trine-Shawinka into the Shadow Realm? That was an awful moment. Drew Lock is in there, Joe Flacco, and Trey Lance. So, a bit of a thin market in terms of backup quarterbacks. But hey, I wouldn't be mad at Carson Wentz, Case Keenum, Teddy B, or Tyler Huntley, or even CJ Beathard in there. So, guys, that's kind of it. Those are some of the needs that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may still have. Honestly, for me, cornerback's still a need. Edge rusher, you could still add another guy. You certainly could still add another inside linebacker. And I gave you guys some targets for each position group. So what do you guys think about this? Let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions about it down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Do you agree? What are some of your needs and some of your targets that you still have for the Buccaneers, I guess, is a good question. Let me know your thoughts. But anyway, guys, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.